Welcome to the Movie Overload podcast, where we will be discussing 100 essential films from A Trip to the Moon to Parasite and everything in between, except for Woody Allen.
What frick?
I almost said Woody Harrelson. I don't know why.
No, we can talk about him.
He's
I
okay.
actually like him.
I hope he's
a
okay.
good boy.
I love him in The Hunger Games.
Oh yeah, I
I
forgot he's
really
in that.
love it. He's just so
Mhm.
perfect as that character. Anyway, I digress.
He's a character that exists also in Solo. Maybe that should
That's
be my
true.
new running gag is that I just
yeah.
randomly bring up Solo, a movie that I basically don't remember.
Me too. It's good though. I know I like it.
I think I like some of it. I don't
would
know.
like to watch it again.
Anyway, Woody Harrelson's fine,
Yes,
but Woody Allen can
definitely not.
do lots of things that I wouldn't even care. But if he did those bad things that he does, I would care. I would care about that. I'd say no.
Yeah, no,
I'd say
Yes.
fuck.
we would say.
Say fuck you.
Anyway.
Stop it. Fuck. I have to say fuck.
I would say fuck.
Fuck Woody Allen.
Yeah.
Hashtag.
That's the vibe.
Well,
of
we
this
already got our
podcast.
explicitness out of the
Dang.
way in the
Yep,
first 60
always.
seconds.
Now we done it. Yep.
I'm Hannah, by the way,
I'm-
also known as Hananana.
Whoa, that's pretty cool.
I know.
I'm Rhys.
Hi, Rhys. Reese's CCC's. Reese's Pieces.
I'm Hunter.
What up, strange man in the corner?
Yeah. I wish I didn't have to see you over there.
Hunter, also known as Gunther.
I'm sorry.
So
Sure.
mean.
I'm so tired.
abuse.
And apparently that's what comes out.
We're
Everyone
all
in this room is sleep
tired.
deprived.
Oh man, I stayed up till
eyes.
late times for this report.
Good thing we don't have to bank any episodes today. That would be
Yeah.
exhausting.
Man, that would
Just
suck
one.
if we had to bank episodes. I'm so glad that we have standards.
Yeah, same.
You know what I mean? So we'd never do that.
Standards.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're good.
Like actual standards.
Yeah, we're better than all of you.
Basically.
Lame.
That's what I'm trying to say. Is that we're better.
we are
And I mean,
by a lot.
if you really thought that maybe I could befriend them and then guest star on an episode of the podcast to talk about, Children of Paradise or some movie that I'm really into. I'm sorry. No.
no,
we'd never do that.
you can only be.
You're
a
so
friend.
lame.
Yeah, you're lame. You can only be a friend of the pod if
Money?
yes,
I like
Patreon.
Yeah, let's just how about money? Give the money.
Are all the side plugs and inside jokes coming so rapidly today?
I don't even know if the episodes that are actually out have us saying anything about the Patreon.
I don't either, but that's
I
fine
feel like
because there
they
was no
must.
Patreon when they were released.
Are we
That's
still
true.
only 3 episodes in?
Yeah.
Oh, so slow.
I know.
We're quadruple that. I think this is
We're
12,
gonna be making
right?
money in our sleep, though. You know.
Well, yeah, it's true. It's just gonna be
Hopefully.
rolling in.
Exactly. Rolling in the
It's just gonna
dough.
rolling in.
Rolling.
Heck yeah.
Anyway.
So I feel like this person that we're here to talk about today would be the kind of person that'd be great to do a full episode on.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of things about them that are great, and maybe director biographies / filmographies would be a pretty good Patreon exclusive thing, you know?
Yes.
Fun.
This is a 2-hour episode where we're all just diving into this one boy
This boy
or girl.
is Ryan Gosling.
Yeah, we'll just
No.
do the Ryan Gosling episode. We'll talk about every movie he's ever
God.
directed.
Yes, all of them.
This person.
Every single one.
We've never talked about this person before.
We have never. I would never mention this one because I didn't.
It's a
So I didn't really know anything about this guy.
Yeah. Right. Who is it?
I don't know.
Who dat?
Maybe I should just dive straight into this topic
I
here.
guess so. You can
Yeah.
introduce it some
Okay.
kind of way.
Let me try to segueing into doing this thing that I wrote.
Please.
Okay. So
Well done.
Charlie Chaplin's first iconic talkie, 1940's The Great Dictator, is an undeniably enduring film, though its significance at the time was perhaps even greater, with it breaking Hollywood's taboos on criticizing Hitler and his anti-Semitism, while ferociously fighting for the humanitarian cause during a time when America was at peace with Nazi Germany. Chaplin's brilliant blend of comedy and emotion is pointedly and effectively used for political ends that have undoubtedly aged better than most films of the day, resulting in critical praise, box office success, and a strong influence on filmmakers from Chuck Jones to Stanley Kubrick to Wes Anderson and everyone in between. For its perfect comedy, inspiring directing, and moving pathos, The Great Dictator was and is one of the most significant films of all time, cementing Charlie Chaplin as not just the king of silent films, but a true master of film as a whole.
Heck yeah.
There we go.
That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Lovely.
I was tired, and I wrote a thing, and I was really
Well done.
scared to talk about this movie because well, I mean, obviously I'm obsessed with the boy,
A
the
little bit.
Chaplin boy. But
The
also,
boy.
we mentioned on the previous episode that, like, his wife/ex-wife at the time, I can't, if they're casting in, like, 38 for Gone with the Wind or whatever,
Yeah.
Oh.
then he would have been, Polly Goddard would have been his wife. But she lost the role of Scarlett O'Hara because of her connections with Charlie Chaplin. And so I was really nervous to, like, find out why that would be. You know what I mean? Like, is there some
Right.
sort of scandal? Is Charlie Chaplin, like, a Woody Allen type? You know,
Yeah.
that was my thought. You know, I
No.
was nervous about it. And what I ended up finding is that, one, people thought Charlie Chaplin was a Jew and they're anti-Semitic, even though he's not a Jew. And two, Charlie Chaplin opposed anti-Semitism and Hitler,
Okay.
which was kind of taboo.
Right.
So he was controversial because he was
Gotcha.
like, so I don't like fascism. And they were like, ew, you premature anti-fascist.
Ew. Get out of here.
Well,
You
that's
and your
what
wicked
happened.
talent and creative genius.
After this movie, he actually, he got in, like, the, second Red Scare or whatever. He got boosted from the U.S. He got kicked out
What?
in, like, 52 or something.
I
Maybe it
did
was
not
earlier
know
than that.
that.
I can't remember. But yeah, no, and it was, like, largely part of, like, just the fact that he kind of became a political activist about this sort of thing after this movie, and they were
Wow.
like, how dare you get back to England, you fraud, you chicken.
You fraud.
And then there was footage of that, like, of him arriving home in Britain, and they were like, this man believed that maybe we had forgotten him or would not love him as much as when he had left. And they're like, and that is not true. We are so happy to have him home, our boy. And so that was cute. But it was also sad because it's like, man, this guy, like, just kind of risked his neck for, like, political agendas that have aged very well.
Right.
You know what I
Thanks,
mean?
dude.
Like, those sound like things that would have been hated even at the time, I thought.
Well, that's the thing is, I was doing
Or,
some
like,
research on it, and, like,
what he's fighting against.
there were some very pro-Nazi people in America
Oh boy.
Really?
before Pearl Harbor.
Mm.
And
I guess I don't think about that very often.
yeah, no, it's weird because, like, I don't feel like we learned too much, but obviously, like, stuff was going on well before we joined the war.
Mhm.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, what did we join the war in, like, 41? That's when Pearl Harbor was.
Something
Yeah.
like that, yeah.
But, like, a lot of this shit started going down in 38. You know what I mean? Like, we were, and people like, what's his name? The guy that, Charles Lindbergh, like, kind of led this movement of, like, let's stay out of it. Let's stay out of this war. That's a European problem. We don't,
Yeah.
we should just stay out of it, And so they didn't want to criticize Nazi Germany. Nobody was really saying anything. Anti-Semitism was rampant here. Like,
Hmm.
obviously there were a lot of, like, Jews in high up places in Hollywood at the time, but they had to have their own, like, separate country clubs and stuff.
Hmm.
Like, there was ridiculous levels of
So weird.
anti-Semitism,
Ugh.
which, again, we don't hear about because we just kind of have this, like, American perspective of, oh yeah, there was that war that was going on, and, like, we were anyway, then we joined and we won, and we were always the best
Mhm.
people. We were so morally,
Yeah.
so wonderful.
feel
But
that
it's
way.
like, man, like, half the reason why we didn't do anything until Pearl Harbor is because we were like, what's wrong with that, huh? You got a problem with the fact that we hate Jews? They hate Jews. It's fine. Let's just hate on the Jews,
Yeah.
which sucks.
Blonde people rock.
It was sad,
Yee.
but, like, Anyway, I don't feel like Chaplin was. I don't. He definitely didn't deserve being like labeled as this controversial figure because he was
Yeah.
like, guess what, guys?
Hitler sucks.
Hitler sucks butt.
He does,
And he does.
actually.
Mm-hmm. It's actually a fact.
That's historically
Hitler
accurate
does
information.
and was known to suck butt.
Yeah.
Um,
We are now a historical podcast.
Oh.
uh,
I mean, kind of.
but yeah, I mean, like it was. I mean, it was his own like personal money that like went to the film. You know, it was his project because he wasn't really kind of sure he could get it out there. Like that's how controversial it was, which is ridiculous. Like I can't even fathom living in a world where criticizing Hitler is controversial. Oh
Yeah.
wait. I mean, in a different kind of way, Jojo Rabbit was controversial. So,
Yes.
and Life is Beautiful is also okay, basically a lot of the World War II movies are controversial if you have any kind of comedic take on it.
Right.
But it's usually like, are you making light of something that is very serious in a way that, you know, doesn't properly reflect how serious the situation is.
Mm-hmm.
But that was not the problem people had with this. It was just like, no, Hitler's fine, bro. Like,
Right.
anyway. So he spent like around $2 million was his budget of his own money, which is like $37 million today. He put a lot on the line to get this thing made. But you know, it did kind of pay off. Like once it eventually hit other markets, like it came out in America, it did really well. A lot of really like famous people showed up to the premiere. It was very highly anticipated, partially for being controversial, but like it did make a decent amount of money in the box office.
Nice.
And then it came over to England like right at the time of like, you know, the siege beginning. And so it was like a real big morale booster, and people were like,
Nice.
hell yeah, this is everything. This is what I need in my life. And then it came to France a few years after that. And then it also did really well. So like he, you know, it was years before he like was actually fully making money off of it.
Right.
But he always claimed it was like his biggest money maker. But when you actually take into account inflation and like the actual budget of his film, it wasn't the most money that he'd ever made on a film.
Why you gotta call him out like that?
Yeah, he's just wrong.
Crushes dreams, why don't ya?
He ended up making about 3.5 million in the box office, which is like around 64 million today.
Jeez.
Oof.
So in comparison to the $37 million budget, like, you know, he got his money back.
He's fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not mad about that.
But at first, you know, I mean, actually when he started filming it, England wasn't even at war with Germany. And so they were like, actually they didn't want to piss off Hitler. So they're like, we're going to ban this movie. This isn't going to come out here.
Whoa.
They immediately announced this. He announced this project in 1938 because he spent years working on this movie. So he announced it like pretty soon after a lot of really big shit was going down.
Yeah.
And other countries weren't like actually at war, and they were just like, no, we can't piss them off. This is not going to happen. And everybody was like really encouraging him to not make it, except for, I guess, FDR at the time was like,
Oh yeah.
bro, this movie's going to be important. You should
Because he
make
wanted
this.
in.
Huh?
He wanted into the war. Right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I
Is
think
it?
so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he was like, you should definitely make this movie.
Yeah.
But then apparently he didn't really like the movie
Oh.
because he thought it caused too much problem in Latin America.
What?
Because Latin America had some real big pro-Nazi stuff going on there. People were protesting outside of theaters
The heck?
saying like,
Whoa.
Viva Hitler,
What?
Viva Mussolini, death to the Jews.
Jeez.
Like that was like the chant when this movie came out.
Yikes.
It was man, doing research into this was like, I have definitely been fed a different version of how World War II went.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, you think it's like everybody's like, oh, look at all these human rights. This is awful. Let's band together and stop this garbage while we can. It was more just like, oh, I mean, I guess we got to do this now because now you're starting shit with me instead of, you know, like, that's just bonkers. And like, just really think about how many people were on board, like fully on board with Hitler at the time, like all across the world. Like people actually loved him.
No.
is so scary.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
and I mean,
fine,
Chaplin
whatever.
was receiving death threats from like Americans.
I'm very upset with history. I don't like it.
The more you learn about history, the more sad it makes you.
I'm just disappointed.
Yay.
I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
I'm disappointed with you, world.
Yeah, literally.
Always at
Human
every moment
race.
in history.
But
The
also
hum-
specifically 80 years ago.
The
Yeah,
human race
right.
really sucks. I mean, we still do, so.
Yeah, it's
fine.
kind of not good. But I guess I should probably jump into a plot summary before we
Oh,
fully
yeah.
proceed for people that
Sure.
haven't watched this movie.
That's fair.
I don't really think the plot is the reason why this movie is awesome
Right.
per se,
No.
but it is still kind of fun, I guess. So Chaplin stars as a Jewish barber who is injured in a plane crash while saving the Tomanian officer Schultz in World War One, or what is vaguely World War One. The barber languishes in a hospital for 20 years with no clue about the way his country has changed and completely unaware of the rampant anti-Semitism promoted by dictator Adenoid Hinkle. The barber returns to his shop to find persecution and suffering at the hands of Tomanian authorities under Hinkle's control. But a series of altercations leads Commander Schultz to recognize the barber, turn his back on the Tomanian regime at great personal expense, and then they are both captured and placed in a concentration camp. While Hinkle dreams of world domination, the barber dreams for a better life in Austerlitz where he can live free. And then the barber and Schultz escape the concentration camp and end up being mistaken for Hinkle, who gets confused for the Jewish barber himself. And impersonating Hinkle, the barber leads the invasion of Austerlitz, yet puts an end to the regime with a rousing speech evoking timeless themes of beauty and care for our fellow humanity. This final speech is often considered one of the greatest ever put to film, but its reception at the time was far less positive. Relentlessly mocking Hitler, Mussolini, and the Nazi Party, the Great Dictator has gone down in history as one of the most important satire films ever made. I don't really know how to talk about the plot, but also it was 2 a.m. when I wrote that, so I don't know if that made any sense.
Works.
But there
I
we
think It
go.
was great.
Basically,
Hinkle.
Chaplin plays Hinkle and the barber and goes back and forth, between them.
Yeah.
And it's not it's sometimes a good time. Like, it's surprisingly light for how dark it is.
Yeah.
But
They're definitely funny bits
Yeah.
that they put in.
It's
But
funny
also-
too.
I didn't know, I didn't understand why he went for the name Tomania,
Hmm.
because it doesn't like Austerlitz just sounds like Austria,
Austria.
But I guess Tomania was supposed to be a combination of the word mania and like ptomaine, like I guess a kind of poisoning, like ptomaine poisoning.
Oh, that just made me think of like Romania.
Right, that's what I thought too.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I guess it's specifically, like, and this place is poison.
Oh, toxic.
Yeah.
They're toxic human beings.
I guess that's the point. Yeah.
I feel that. Appreciate that. What were you going to say, Gunther?
I was just, on the subject of names and stuff. It's funny how there's a lot of it that is trying to be kind of slightly off. That's it's Hinkle in Tomania.
Right.
And he hates Jews.
Yeah.
We're not going to beat around the bush here. He doesn't like Jews.
Yeah.
And it's oh, okay. So it's very hard to miss the actual point of it, of course.
Right.
I mean, for various reasons, of course. But yeah.
And I like that because it's different than something like it definitely has bits of it that rang of Duck Soup, but it does a very different thing because he's trying to be comedic sometimes, but he's also very pointedly being but no, this matters.
Right.
And so he'll do stuff like that. And there's sometimes in which he could fit a joke there where he doesn't, or, where he shows compassion for a specific character or that kind of thing, where it'd be easier to make them a punchline in a dark comedy sort of way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just think that the way that he approached making this film makes it very different than a lot of satire films that I've seen, but also kind of better for that for me, I think.
Makes sense.
I liked it when he hung upside down out of the plane.
Yeah.
That
my
was
gosh,
it for me, man.
That was
I
a
was
good
like,
little
yes.
sequence.
So he was a really hardcore perfectionist with every film he made, but with this one in particular, he spent 2-3 years trying to perfect this movie, you know.
Oh my gosh.
But that take, like they went through that like a trillion times, and you can totally see it on his face. Like he looks
Yeah.
like he's dying. Both of them were very uncomfortable, but like at the time, Chaplin was like 50,
oh my
and
gosh.
he's doing
Whoa.
all this stuff, and like staying upside down like that for like a trillion takes to get it exactly perfectly.
The dedication.
Yeah,
I'm inspired.
that guy, man. Such respect.
If you feel bad about yourself in your life, remember, you should, because you're not Charlie Chaplin
You're
or
not,
nearly
yeah,
as
so
cool
you
as
don't-
him.
I mean, that's fair.
So
honestly.
you suck. But
You do
that's fine.
suck. You're not Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah.
That goes to for you too, Hunter. You suck. You're not Charlie Chaplin.
You're not
I
Charlie
know.
Chaplin.
Yeah.
Very aware.
Grow a mustache already.
Can't.
Oh
I
yeah.
can't.
I've actually got
Me
some.
neither.
So I like the fact that part of the point of this movie is him claiming back his mustache. You know what I mean?
That
Right?
Yes.
Because like you always hear like, you know, Charlie Chaplin's got that Hitler mustache, and at the time everybody was like,
no.
who is this man with the Charlie Chaplin mustache? When referring
Right.
to Hitler, like that was actually in a
Hitler
propaganda
stole
song,
it.
I guess.
That's awesome.
That's a line in a Nazi propaganda song. Is who is this man with the Charlie Chaplin mustache? Anyway,
He was the OG.
so he was, and then he comes back and he's like, "No, frick you, Hitler is my mustache."
This
So I
is
like that.
mine. You made it
Um,
negative.
But there's like a lot of similarities
Mhm.
between like the lives of Hitler and Chaplin that also made it kind of an interesting
Hmm.
thing to do. for the film
Spooky.
to make. Hitler and Chaplin were born 4 days apart.
Whoa.
No way.
Yeah,
Wait, weren't they born in June?
I think so. I don't remember. I didn't have his birth date on.
That's
here,
okay.
but yeah,
For some reason, I thought that my birthday was close to Hitler's birthday, and it freaked me out. But that's fine.
it might be.
I
Yeah,
don't know.
and you might have Charlie Chaplin's birthday. It's possible.
I'm gonna look it up.
You should.
Carry on.
It's often claimed that like Hitler took Chaplin's mustache intentionally to piggyback on the world's love for Chaplin, but there's not really anything that like actually, you know, confirms that. But I've heard it said. I've also heard it discounted, so who knows? But I wouldn't be surprised because at that point, Chaplin, and I guess I guess maybe that's an important bit of historical context as well, is that like Chaplin was the most beloved person in the world, like for the entirety of the silent era, sure, but like up through modern times, you know, he was the most well-known person in the world. He was the most well-loved person in the world. He was like the star, you know.
Yeah.
And so it's, you know, it's quite possible that Hitler's like, yeah, you know, let me take that Charlie Chaplinism
I see.
for myself. Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Mhm.
The social.
Right. You've got these two guys with the same facial hair on separate sides of the spectrum.
Yeah. Exactly opposite sides of the spectrum. Both also made it big in countries they weren't from, you know, like Hitler's from Austria and then like goes and rules Germany, and Chaplin's from England and then, you know, goes and rules the US, you know, in a way.
Yeah.
And, you know, both of them were in the right circles, most loved and hated people in history, like in their time, you know, because people really hated Chaplin. When it got all controversial and like, hey, maybe people's lives matter and stuff. And then people really also got mad at Hitler when he was like, maybe people's lives don't matter. But
So weird.
yeah,
He is going to cause problems on purpose.
People are so confusing.
yeah.
They were born in April, by the way.
They were born in April. That makes sense.
Don't know why I thought June, but Hitler was born on 4/20.
Oh.
Blaze it. That's
Well, you know,
fine.
he did blaze it. He burned a lot of books.
That is true.
Yeah.
I'm still bitter about that. It's too soon.
Actually, Hitler was like really big into movies. I was reading.
I've
Like
kind of been picking up on that.
he had a really big like theater like film collection. He would see all the movies that come out and like movies that he did not like just he didn't think they were good movies would be banned in Germany.
He's like a
course.
little 8-year-old that ruled the country.
Honestly. And Chaplin like
like
really
you.
tries to like push that idea, you know, with him like kicking around the globe and like
Yeah.
having these like really childish delusions, and I know
That's funny.
it's beautiful.
He's
it's great.
mentally crazy.
But also, which is an important bit of context for this movie, both Chaplin and Hitler really loved Wagner. But like that's peak music for both of them. And so, you know, when Henkel is like playing piano, he's like, I think he's playing a bit of Wagner. And then when he's kicking around the globe, that's to a bit of Wagner as well. And then that same song is used at the end, like at the very end, which is in this weird way kind of being like, hey, Hitler, this is another thing that you can't claim as your own. Like culture, things that are beautiful are not yours. And, you know, people that don't suck like them. And people aren't going to forever associate Wagner with Hitler.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
it belongs to the world.
Right, exactly. That was kind of his entire point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did Hitler like this movie?
Well, there is information on some things. There's some conflicting reports, but I heard from like there was a first-hand account in the documentary The Tramp and the Dictator that from this one guy who like his actual job was to like go through like all this like basically for the war crime trial after World War II, he like had to go through a lot of Hitler's film collection, I guess, and he saw a copy of The Great Dictator. It's also been claimed that he saw it twice.
Oh snap!
Nobody knows what he thought of it, and actually Chaplin himself heard that he saw it twice and was like, "I would give literally anything to know what he thought of that movie."
Oh my gosh! It's like one of your haters is making a dope movie about you.
Right.
I would want to go see it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there was already sort of like, you know, with them banning all of Chaplin's films because they thought he was a Jew, and like he was actually put like so in like 1931 he was really big in Germany, and like there's footage of him like appearing like you know coming off of the plane and like being absolutely swarmed. And the Nazi party thought that was really annoying, so they like spread around like he's a disgusting Jewish acrobat or something. I think that's what they put in this like book about like the Jews are watching you was this book that they published, and they like it lists a bunch of people that they claim are Jews, and Charlie Chaplin is in there and they label him as a disgusting Jewish acrobat.
That's fun. Disgusting.
Yeah. So Hitler did see it twice, and one of the people they interviewed for that documentary was apparently in Hitler's inner circle, which is creepy.
What is that like?
He didn't seem like super like, oh man, that was a bad move, you know?
Right.
He was talking about how much he kind of liked Hitler. It was weird. Anyway.
He's like, oh, that crazy son of a bitch.
Exactly.
We had good times.
He was like, oh, you know, Hitler had this great sense of humor. Like, I could totally see him watching that and just like laughing at it and finding it funny.
I wonder, I should read about this. Was Hitler just like one of those super charming, charismatic, likable people? It's like, wow, what's that name? Ted Bundy. Where it's like, oh, you're so likable and everyone's drawn to you, but you're a psycho.
I don't think it was exactly like that. Like from what I was reading, Hitler took a lot of acting classes and was very, very calculated in the way that he like portrayed himself.
Nice.
It was definitely more like, this like calculated controlling people and their emotions than it was just like, he's just like chill
Likeable.
dude, but he just wants to kill everyone, you know?
Yeah, this is no big deal.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I can see that.
But Chaplin was always like horrified to some extent by the comparisons between him and Hitler.
That would make me cry.
Yeah. There's a quote where he said, "Just think, he's the madman, I'm the comic, but it could have been the other way around." And that's like,
that'll keep you up at night.
It will, and it did. Mm-hmm.
And it did.
And then he made this movie.
Poor guy. It's really so sad.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of dope though that he had to like make this film, I think, to probably come to terms with all of it.
Well, yeah, but I mean also on top of that, he said that he would have never made this film if he'd known about the actual like atrocities in concentration camps at the time. Like he doesn't, once that kind of information got out, he really felt like it was too serious to be joked about. So he made this movie, I guess, at the right time for him, because he never would have made it later. And afterwards, he was so opposed to Hitler being the butt of jokes that like, and his like his house in Switzerland, one of his like son's friends came over and was talking about how like, growing up, Hitler was always like the butt of all these jokes
Right.
or whatever. And he just like got real serious and like walked over to his like photo albums and pulled out an entire photo album of like pictures of
Mm.
the death camps and like made her look through them all and was like,
Wow.
this is not
It's
a
not
laughing
funny.
matter.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
yeah, I don't know.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
His own personal process with that.
Yeah. Oh, I've got some statistics here on like the amount of on the American opinion of Nazi Germany at the time.
Ooh.
95% of Americans polled as wanting to stay out of the European war. Like they were like, it's a European problem. The fact 95%.
That's crazy.
They're like, we're so done with you,
And
Europe.
that instantly changed after Pearl Harbor.
Well, yeah.
But like
Everyone
like literally the day after, like a lot of these groups disbanded. We're like, okay, fine, yeah, let's jump in there.
Yeah.
And then we decided to just destroy some civilian populations. So that's
Yay. Good move.
Boy.
Fun stuff.
But they always claimed I guess I do need to go back to the idea of Chaplin as a Jew, because that was perpetrated in a lot of different places, and he didn't really deny it, even though he wasn't a Jew. The quote is, "Anyone who denies this in respect to himself plays into the hands of anti-Semites." So he was like, if you're going to call me a Jew, I'll claim it. I'm not going to deny it because I don't have a problem with being labeled as one.
Right.
Like, if I say that I'm not, if I'm like, oh, no, I'm not, like that.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's like, so you do think it's a problem.
Right.
It shouldn't be a problem. So just like, it's whatever.
That's very smart and level-headed of him to not get caught up in that.
Man, so much
political,
respect.
social. I know.
You know?
Well, I think especially with him being so popular, it's like it'd be really easy to get caught up in what people think of you. And if you're being attacked with that and you're not that, you would want to just deny it. So it's like,
yeah.
Good job, dude.
But he didn't
you were
do that.
totally aware of what was really important.
And like that shows through like in his creative process as well.
Yeah.
Because like at this point, this is his first silent film in 1940. And like, silent films stopped really being a thing way earlier. Like in the 30s, people were transitioning to talkies. And
Right.
by this point, like a lot of big like early talkie stars had even faded. Like so many people from the silent era just like either quit or started doing talkies, got really big maybe in the 30s, and then faded out. And here Chaplin still is. He's like, okay, now I'll make my first talkie like a decade after everybody else did.
Jeez.
And so like City
Keeping
Lights
it
and Modern
fresh.
Times like were like City Lights had his own soundtrack that he had written. He composed it.
Yeah.
And that was like as close as he got to sound at that point.
Mm.
And then he went between 1931 and 36, like touring around the entire world, like kind of like, do I want to move on to talkies? Do I want to do silent pictures still?
Yeah.
Apparently Winston Churchill wrote an article that was like, hey, Chaplin, keep making those silent films. It's like everybody who speaks any language, like it doesn't matter. Everybody can connect to it. Like this is a good thing.
That's
Keep it.
really
it up.
cool, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he traveled around the whole world and just like was noticing, he was talking to world leaders and like just seeing the effects of the Depression across the entire world. And that's when he came back to do Modern Times, and that, which I highly recommend watching because it's amazing, is mostly a silent picture, but there's like one character that has lines of dialogue, like actually recorded lines of dialogue, and then there's a bit at the end with like singing, but it's mostly a silent picture still. So he's just like, he was sticking around, like he was just doing what he wanted to do despite what the trends were at the time, and was still making an impact despite that, because he's just so freaking talented. And people had a lot of respect for him until they started realizing, oh wait, he cares about people. His political ideas are that he's like, anyway, it's whatever.
How dare he?
Weird. I know. Caring about other humans.
Yeah, man, the Red Scare was just like,
What is that?
in some ways, I mean, in a lot of ways, in most ways, really garbage, because it's like, we'll just label anybody as being red and like kick them out. And it's like, all you have to do is have like some like either vaguely leftist views or be from another country, or,
And you're done.
And
Get
you're
out.
out. Yeah.
I don't want you here.
Yeah, I don't actually know if he ever came back to America after he got kicked out. Like, I don't think he could come back.
That's kind of sad.
Yeah.
It's so funny that, like, you know, during World War II, like, the enemy in that perspective was, like, really, really, like, far right. And we were allied with a country that was, like, really, really far left. But, like, it feels like the far left kind of became more demonized.
Yeah, well,
I don't know what happened there exactly, or I don't know how that shakes out. But
I think people were like, well, I don't know, because it is, like, the Nazi Party is the National Socialist German Workers' Party. So they're looking at it as being
I
socialism,
did not realize that.
even though what was
That
being
makes
fought
sense.
was authoritarianism. You know what I mean?
Right. I
Which
guess
is-
I conflate it more with that.
I don't know
I
how that
guess-
goes
I
on
don't
the
know.
spectrum. Is it like, I think it's like if you have a grid of political opinions, there's right and there's left, and then the north and south axes are authoritarianism and libertarianism.
Ah.
So I don't know that it was like, I think it's that the association between authoritarianism and, like, left-leaning socialism in Nazi Germany, like, was they got associated enough,
Okay.
even though now we kind of have we almost sort of associate authoritarianism with right-wing perspectives,
guess,
but I don't
yeah.
think I don't think authoritarianism is specifically linked to either end of the political spectrum. It just happened to be culturally, perhaps.
Gotcha. Okay.
Um,
That works. That makes sense.
but yeah, I don't know.
It's complicated.
Is all whack. Is all whack. So a bit of context is I'm sorry, there's so much historical context to go
You
through,
good?
Yeet.
but I hadn't heard of this, but there was this thing called, let me see if I can pronounce this right, the Crystal Nacht, which I didn't actually know about, which is weird because I feel like that's something I should have learned about in some sort of history class. But that Crystal Nacht means, like, Night of Broken Glass. And that was in November 1938 when German rioters destroyed 267 synagogues, broke into 7,000 Jewish businesses without government intervention, and then 30,000 Jewish men were thrown into concentration camps.
Jeez.
And, like, yeah, the government, like, stood by. It's just they didn't do anything in some instances, and then participated, in a lot of instances.
Boy.
And so that's when the camera, like, zooms in to focus on the Canaries, when the like, cops are coming in and, like, destroying his barbershop, and you can just hear shattering glass. It's specifically a reference to the Night of Broken Glass.
Okay.
Yeah, it's weird that that was one of the most publicized events in all of history, like, when that happened. But somehow people didn't do anything about it. Like, I don't know. It's weird that there was a lot of information about that kind of thing happening, but not very much information about what was happening in the concentration camps, and like, people in concentration camps were the last people to get relief at the end of the war. Like, I
That's
don't know.
insane.
It's
It's
such a
crazy.
weird mix of, like, information, because because we in our society at the moment feel like we kind of have information on most things. You know what I mean? Like, we know about the Muslim Uyghurs in internment camps in China, and we know about like the forced organ harvesting and that kind of thing. And again, we're not doing anything about it. And again, we don't criticize them in our movies because that would be, because, well, one, Germany was a really big film market, so they didn't want to do it for that reason.
There you go.
Just like how China's a really
That's how it
big film
goes.
market now. Guess who's still not doing anything about any of that? I don't like the comparisons to now, but they're there.
Yay, humanity, you're the same. You never change.
Basically.
Don't want to cause a stir if it's going to disrupt a profit.
Right? It's just money. Always.
Yeah. So I have some notes on, like, the specific way that Hitler is portrayed in Hinkle. Obviously, his well-publicized love of classic music is parodied with him playing piano and dancing to Wagner and all that sort of thing. But he's also shown to be entirely indifferent to the deaths of his own men, which is kind of an important fact, I think, because it is very clearly painting a picture of Hitler is pretty awful, like the Nazi Party is pretty awful, but not like all of the underlings.
Mm-hmm.
It also calls out the fact, I really like that bit where it calls out the fact that Hitler wasn't even like blonde-haired or blue-eyed. You know, he's talking about this like beautiful blonde-haired Aryan race, and he's like, and then Garbage is like, yeah, ruled by a brunette
leader. Yeah.
Dark eyes.
It's like, yes.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
The idea of the German sounding fake language being like specifically when everybody's like angry and, you know, full of hate, I think is really interesting because it takes Hitler's very for a lot of people very influential speeches, because he was a very good orator, takes the way that he would rile up a crowd and speak in that way and just instantly labels it as like, no, this is just angry and hateful and kind of ridiculous, like when he's kind screaming about Wiener Schnitzel and the banana and
The banana.
Oh my gosh, the banana thing.
It's too good.
It is.
He's so he's like, that's something that he was really well known for, like when he would, you know, entertain guests or whatever, is that he could just make all these like convincing sounding fake languages, which can obviously very easily be the sort of thing that like now would not be considered PC.
I guess so, yeah.
Apparently there was some sort of record of him like everybody thinking he could speak fluent Chinese or something.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway,
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know.
Huh. Interesting.
It didn't seem like it came from a bad place, but also like wouldn't do that now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but
it's a little different
the way that
taste
it's put to effect here is
Oh,
really
yeah.
good.
for sure.
A big fan.
Big fan.
Yeah. Also, the character of Garbage is a poke at the twice mentioned enemy of the pod, Nazi propagandist Joseph Goebbels.
Yes.
Enemy of the pod.
Enemy of the pod.
Well, because we talked about him in a few episodes, right? Like,
yeah,
he was in the Metropolis episode, and he was also in
Grand
that you
Illusion,
did, right?
Yeah, the Grand Illusion episode.
Yeah.
I didn't like that one.
So he was obviously kind of a big deal, kind of garbage guy.
Could
and
you
so
say
they
that
named
name
him
one more
Garbage.
time?
His name is Garbage.
Garbage? Garbage?
It's Garbage.
Garbage.
Yeah, it's spelled Garbitsch.
Also known as trash.
Also known as
What?
Trash.
What?
The man
I just
who
love that.
sucks. Yeah, no, it was really great.
It's pretty good. Garbage.
And he specifically kind of makes a point of using anti-Semitism to keep the public angry and not focused on their hunger, the state of their country, or any kind of similar issue, which clearly shows Chaplin's and the world's naivete to what was really going on in the concentration camps. But is still an interesting point that the movie makes, even if it's not really accurate to
it's a pretty heavy focus. Yeah.
what was actually going on.
Interesting.
Yeah, the way that he tries to absolve the everyday stormtrooper, you know, by like when Hinkle like decides, oh wait, no, we want to get funding from this Jewish guy. Well, let's stop the, you know, persecution of the Jews for a bit, and then all the cops are just like nice all of a sudden.
Yeah.
He's trying to basically be like, not everybody is just a mini copy of Hinkle,
I
of
guess so,
Hitler,
yeah.
you know, which would be a lot easier to like stir people up and, you know, make them mad, and, you know, it would be more effective propaganda if he were like, look at all of these people, this entire, like, all of Nazi Germany, it's all so evil and bad, you know what I mean? But like he's trying to have some sort of like restraint and compassion for like the everyday man even within that.
Yeah, I feel like there maybe needs to be like maybe some nuance in there between like, yeah, they don't all maybe have just the like hateful heart of it, but it's like if they go along with it, they're still kind of complicit in that.
Right.
But like either way that goes,
Which
I don't know,
is
it's weird.
Which is true. It's an interesting thing because again, there wasn't as much information as we have now.
Yeah, true.
You know?
Yeah.
And we also have the perspective of having seen a lot of World War II movies that are painted in a very different light.
Yeah.
So we have a very different perspective of all of these events than actually they had at the time, which I think is why this movie's so interesting now, because it does show us that, you know, these events that still kind of affect us today were seen so differently when they were happening.
Right.
But like, yeah, I think there is an interesting thing, like, and it depends on the source or the person, but a lot of people did not want to have anything to do with Nazi Germany, but did not have a choice. And then there were some people that just like were spineless and went along with it anyway. And
true.
Yeah, like it is interesting to think about, like how would any of us respond in that situation,
Right?
And that's a scary thought. It's just like what Chaplin was saying, like he's the dictator, I'm the comedian, but could have been the other way around.
Yeah, because we get to look back on the big picture of all the negative.
We get to know
with
everything,
all
that was
the
going
information.
on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And we might have just been just as clueless.
Mm-hmm.
And we might be clueless right
Which
now.
is terrifying. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because like,
Right.
yeah, watching those speeches of Hitler, like, there's a lot of footage of that was in the documentary, but like, very easily, like I do try to like, generally, put myself in the shoes of like other people when I watch movies or when I watch newsreels or whatever. Try to see like, how could somebody think that way? You know what I mean? How could somebody think that like Hitler was this great guy or whatever? And like, at the time when he came to power, he did kind of pull Germany out of a pretty serious depression where it was like, I can't even remember what it was, like 1 billion marks for a loaf of bread. Like it was really
What
bad.
the heck?
And he did turn all that around. So people were already like, oh, he's helping out the economy. He's doing some good things. And then on top of that, he starts having these just like very emotionally charged speeches. It's very easy to just like go along with that and just be like, yeah, I mean, I don't know, whatever you're making me feel something. So like,
Right.
I guess that means you're right or something.
I guess that means you're right.
And that's how a lot of people think, if you can make somebody very passionate about something, they aren't really questioning what they're doing. And I think he was obviously very aware of that.
Right.
Hence the acting classes.
That's
whatever works.
It almost makes me mad that he took acting classes. He used it for evil.
Such evil. Yeah. And then there's the bit where his like henchman comes in and he's like, "Oh, we just made the most lovely poison gas."
Yay.
I think that also does I think that's also really powerfully like being comedic while also talking about the atrocities. He tried very hard to have an effective and fair balance of what he's doing, about like who he's criticizing, what he's criticizing, and somehow managing to try to keep it light.
Yeah.
Like he wasn't trying to make a dark comedy either. He was making a Chaplin-esque comedy. So the amount of effort he put into balancing that is interesting. And even if it's not like what we generally would think of, like when we think of a Nazi comedy, because there are lots of those out there now, there was a specific intent with that, which is interesting. And another thing, I guess, is probably time to dive into the filmmaking process, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out a way to structure this in a way that makes sense. I don't know. I'm
dumb
trying.
movie.
So Charlie wrote, directed, produced, and composed this film. With in regards to the composition of the score, he worked with Meredith Willson of The Music Man fame.
Ah! Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
That name took a second to ring in. I was like, oh, wait, I love that person.
So some of the score, it kind of depends on the scene. Some of it's kind of just more done by Chaplin. Some of it's Meredith Willson. It's a good score. I like it.
We love Meredith. Yes, we do.
There are definitely some bits in there that are like, oh yeah, that's out of The Music Man. Even though The Music Man, I guess, hadn't been made yet.
It had not. No.
Yeah. Anyway, so that was kind of cool. Just the fact that Chaplin is, I don't know if he's the earliest example of an auteur, because I guess like in a weird way, Méliès kind of is, because he's in The Trip to the Moon. Yeah. But he's not like. It's kind of different in a way because there's not as much writing.
Yeah, and it was just so short.
Yeah.
It's just very different.
Yeah. As far as like what we think now, like what we think of now as like an auteur, like Chaplin is probably one of the earliest examples of that. I mean, also just like, how is this man able to do like these amazing silent pictures that are really funny, mostly based off of his own ability to do visual gags and his own, like, all of that sort of thing. Then he starts directing, and then he's able to orchestrate so much more like fluid movements and incorporate all these different techniques to do stuff so wonderfully, so beautifully. He starts getting really good at composing music, and then eventually he starts doing talkies, and then he's writing some of the best dialogue. I mean,
Right.
Yeah.
the speech at the end is one of the best speeches ever written on film, at the very least.
Mm-hmm.
It's extremely moving. It definitely made me cry. Just thinking about it can make me emotional. And
Is that a tear in your eye? I see it. Don't be ashamed.
It is great.
It was so powerful, even for today's world.
he was really proud of it. Like, he spent months just writing that speech.
Wow.
He tried to get it as perfect as he could. He brought in John Steinbeck to help work on it, although he didn't end up
Nice.
using anything that Steinbeck had worked on. He ended up throwing it all out and like doing it himself.
Okay.
But that was that's Chaplin's process. He's a perfectionist. He'll spend as much time, specifically with this movie, as much time as he needed to get it as perfect as he could possibly get it. Looking and sounding as good as he wanted it to.
Interesting.
Which is cool. It also means, like, there's a lot of stuff that ends up on the cutting room floor like that. Like, I wonder what Steinbeck wrote. Like, there's bits of Meredith Willson's score that isn't there, That kind of thing does intrigue me. But he began working on the film in 1938, 3 years before America joined the war, it releasing a full year before America joined the war. And to kind of get the idea for some of the visuals and for being able to copy the way that Hitler spoke so effectively, he rewatched Riefenstahl's Triumph of the Will like over and over and over again. Apparently it was showing at like the Met or something.
Nice.
Whoa.
And he went with this other filmmaker, and that filmmaker was like, this should never be seen. He was like, this is horrifying, because it is. But then Chaplin was just like, he was just cracking up at it, apparently.
I can use this.
And then watched it over and over again to be able to just like really effectively mock it. And I saw a speech of Hitler's that was in Triumph of the Will put right next to one of Chaplin's like Hinkle speeches, and he does it perfectly. Like, it's weird. He has the exact same energy. It's very impressive how he was able to do that as somebody who was a silent film actor,
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
he'd never done dialogue or speeches or, line delivery.
Just the regular version.
And then he just does it, It's bonkers.
He's so talented.
Cool.
Yeah. Also, he was originally going to name the movie The Dictator. That was the original plan.
Okay.
But Paramount had already registered that title and was like, nah, give us $25,000 for it. And he's like, no, I'll add one word. And then I get more words, and it's also free.
Nice.
Smart man.
Oh, so
Which
That
is pretty
film
funny.
industry ain't gonna bully me.
Mm-hmm.
The great dictator.
Also, he's actually one of the founders of United Artists. I didn't know that, but he's like
I
one
did
of the
not know that.
one of the like 6 or 7
Oh,
people that founded
that's so
United
cool.
Artists. So
cool.
that's what it was put out through, which is cool. Anyway,
Nice.
Go you, Charlie.
oh, he's just so good. Let's see, what else do I got here in the pre-production phase? I thought I wanted to put in there that I feel like it rings of Grand Illusion a little bit as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that there's like an aristocratic German officer who's like shown to actually have some humanity and, shares a pretty
Yeah, true.
deep bond with an enemy of state.
I
Anyway,
liked him.
that's the only real comparison between those two movies.
That works.
But,
What did we say his name was? Schultz?
Schultz,
I
yeah.
kind of liked him. He had a cool vibe.
He was good. That actor, I think he was like 20 years younger than Chaplin, but he doesn't
Wow.
look 20 years younger than
Yeah.
Chaplin.
Huh.
And he gives a pretty good performance, but apparently what I was reading is that he had some difficulty with definitely the upside down scenes, but he already was just, I think he had like back issues or something. I don't think he had a great time on the set, but he did give a pretty solid
Fair.
performance that I think Chaplin was very fond of.
Mhm.
And Chaplin was also sued for this movie. Somebody was
Oh.
claiming that they came up with the like barber/king idea, I guess.
What?
And they just like he settled it. Like Chaplin was like, I didn't want to have to deal with it, so I just just kind of paid him off or whatever.
Okay.
But it's
Huh.
weird because even though it was never brought up in court, it seems like that actual concept of having a barber and then like the ruler of a European country like being played by the same actor as like a doppelganger situation
Mm.
was actually probably more likely inspired by his half brother's film King Queen Joker. So
What?
like it doesn't seem super likely to me that he really like stole the idea from somebody else so much
Yeah.
as he kind of appropriated the idea from his half brother, which helped work on the film. It wasn't like he was just trying to like he was not like directly ripping him off either. Like there's actually a lot of like what's it called, like on set footage that was filmed by his half brother Sidney in color that you can go through on the Criterion edition. It's really
He
interesting.
wasn't stealing it. It was a collaboration.
Yeah, that's
No.
that's what seems most likely to me.
Yeah.
Who knows, I guess. But yeah, no, Chaplin in his autobiography, I think, mentioned that and was just saying like, I was already a controversial figure at the time. I didn't really need more scrutiny, which is fair.
Yeah.
And I mean, who knows? But
Indeed.
obviously at the time, I doubt there would have been many courts in favor of Chaplin anyway. Like it's a bias system, but with a large public figure like that,
right,
and a very controversial movie.
Deal with it on his own.
Mm-hmm. So shooting, or I couldn't tell if it was the shooting itself or the entire process of making the film, but it took 559 days to make. Apparently.
Whoa.
And there were extensive reshoots because he was a perfectionist and he would go back and try to fix things. Filming began in September 1939 and finished 6 months later. But then I think as they were going through editing, they went back and they'd have to,
Yeah.
do
That
other
sounds
stuff.
expensive.
Yes, very, very much so.
$2 million
He spent
worth.
quite a bit of money to rebuild sets that had been destroyed
What?
Oh
in
my
order to
gosh.
do these reshoots.
Oh,
So I think the
Jeez.
two sets that I knew of for sure is like the penny scene
Mm-hmm.
with in the pudding or whatever.
Oh yeah.
They had to rebuild that set. So some of those shots, I think a majority of those shots are from the reshoots.
That's insane.
Although one of the actors that was there died before the reshoots. So like, I guess some of those shots were from before that,
Have to be, I guess.
Yeah.
That's
And then
gosh.
the entire ghetto set they
Right.
rebuilt.
Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah. And it already had taken like a year to get like all their props and set pieces built for
Jeez.
this movie. It had some very big production values that Chaplin was extremely proud of. Like he'd go on about it quite a bit, about how happy he was with the way that the movie turned out.
I think it came out pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
It worked.
Yeah. And I do think it's interesting to note the way that like he makes jokes that feel like essentially silent film-esque but are essentially sound film bits, like setting his the shaving bit or, like, which is set to the music that he's listening
I
to.
really liked that.
Like it for some reason like feels like a silent film bit, but it's also
Right. Because like it's not using any
entirely
dialogue.
sound dependent,
Right. It relies on having a very specific soundtrack. So
which is
kind of
interesting.
both. It's a weird in between.
That makes it a hybrid in the same way that
Kinda,
like
yeah.
City Lights or Modern Times would have been.
Yeah.
Or the gag with the light artillery. Do you remember that where they're like, the guy that Mussolini and Hitler is like sitting there.
Oh yeah,
and like
there's
there's
no
stuff going
sound,
by
like,
and
the very
the
light
light-
indeed.
yeah,
or
like
something,
there's
yeah.
no sound, but the light artillery makes it
Oh
all, and he's
gosh.
like, it is very light, yeah.
Yeah.
Or the bit with
I
the
like that
planes where they're like,
Yeah.
oh, those are my planes, and then Hitler's like, no, our planes, and
Mhm.
then it crashes. He's like, yeah, you're right, those are your planes.
Your opinions, yeah. Just using the audio, the sound effects to convey the things that they're not showing you visually. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
She took advantage of it in smart ways.
Mhm.
Right. And in ways that didn't feel like it. If you've seen any of his other films, which I know I'm the only one at the moment.
Sorry.
But they do feel as like essentially Chaplin jokes.
Right.
Like the way that the gags function is the way that his humor functions.
Yeah.
And you don't even notice that, like, oh, he's using another dimension to it, like, you know, that he couldn't have done before.
Yeah.
It still totally just like fits with his pantheon of gags. Also, the guy that played Napoloni, Jack Oakey, was, I guess, like Irish, and everybody was like, "Bro, why you making him? Why you getting the guy to play like the Mussolini character? Why you getting an Irish actor?" He's like, what would be funny about casting an Italian guy to do it?
Right.
That was his
Like,
response to that. Was
so-
like, we're making fun of the guy.
Yeah.
Who gives a crap, you know? But also,
Do
if
what I
you like
want.
look at like photos or footage of Mussolini and compare them to Napoloni, it's like, it's actually surprisingly very accurate. Like, you know, the way he like juts out his chin, the facial features in general. It's like,
He
it's
knew
not
it.
what because I've never seen footage of Mussolini before this. It's not what I would have thought he looked like, but that's exactly what he looks like,
That's
which
funny.
is funny.
So
Yeah.
he knew what he was doing.
Yeah, right. And even like actually like Hitler's or Henkel's office,
Yeah.
was based off of like actual photos from the Third Reich. Like they tried to make things, you know,
That's crazy.
pretty accurate as far as they could. Although one thing that is definitely not accurate is that the signs on the ghetto, like all of the signage and everything, is in Esperanto.
Huh.
But that is also a call back to something that Hitler wrote in Mein Kampf, because he said that Esperanto was a Jewish plot to destroy German culture.
Oh God.
Oh my gosh.
Man, like, how do you even like?
That's so
you even
great.
hate Esperanto? There's something. Obviously, there's something wrong with Hitler, but like, there's quite a few things wrong with Hitler. But like, man,
Just a
he
few.
hated everything. I had to read Mein Kampf for a class. It was not a good time.
Weird.
700 pages of just like, I could not care.
Of
Jeez.
screaming.
What?
Ah,
Yeah, right.
I'm uncomfy
Yeah, it's all just like
and bored.
the entire book is in all caps because it.
Ew.
Yeah.
So the special effects, there are a few interesting things that they did. Like for some of the crowd scenes, I didn't even notice this until like I'd been told about it a few times and I looked in. But like the people in like the front of the crowds, like raising their hands to Heil or whatever, are real actors. But in the back are a bunch of puppets.
Oh.
What?
Yeah, and you can't tell. Like, I mean, you could if you were looking closely, but like you don't
Weird.
notice it. You know?
That's kind of
Right.
creepy.
Yeah, it's cool.
Huh.
And then he also was really proud of this one shot. Like, there's a really, really wide shot with like a massive amount of people in this crowd near the end. And apparently that's grape nuts on a vibrating table. Like, it's literally
No
just
way.
the entire crowd is just grape nuts, and
The
it's just,
heck?
you know, the table's just vibrating.
I
and
love it.
so they're moving around a
Okay.
bit.
Iconic.
It's totally like you buy it when you look
Yeah.
at that shot. It's amazing.
I'm questioning
That's
everything
crazy.
now.
It's so cool. Yeah, and I honestly the miniature bits, like with the plane at the beginning, looks really nice. Like I do just want to
Yeah.
shout out to my boy. The miniature plane did a good job,
Yee.
It's pretty
and
great.
that plane crash is really satisfying in a weird way because it doesn't. They don't do what I would expect from a movie of this era, where they don't really show it. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
you kind of hear this plane crash effect, and then you like
Yeah.
cut over and you see the plane crashing. But like you really do just like see it flying in upside down, and I don't know. Like there's a decent amount of work that even just goes into that kind of thing that I don't really think about. But like back in
Right.
the 40s was pretty impressive. You know,
How do you nail that?
How did they do that?
just miniatures, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
Miniatures are the answer to everything.
Miniatures. Basically on it. And miniatures should be used more. I really appreciate the miniature
I wish.
usage in The Mandalorian. Those
Mm.
those shots of
It's
them
true.
ships is miniatures is look good.
I
That's
appreciate
fact.
that,
That's fact.
you know, despite its ups and downs, at least new Star Wars still does kind of keep
At least
a lot
there's
of
some
the
practical things.
Right, they brought back a lot of the cool practical stuff,
Yeah.
and I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of innovating also, because there was some weird other stuff. Not to get too off into that, but The Mandalorian was doing something I forget the name of, right?
I can't even.
Something with the staging and filming. I haven't looked into it enough.
We should look into it,
Yeah.
but I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, cool. I know it's a real thing because I heard people talk about it, but I'm forgetting
Right.
the name. We can cut this.
I
part
need to
out.
watch the
Science.
documentary.
Anyway,
on that.
I do want to watch that documentary.
Don't
Yeah.
cut this
series
part
about
out.
it
It's
'cause it'd be cool.
educational.
It's so educational.
Yes.
Anyway, so now you know a Mandalorian has used miniatures and other things.
it's
Spoiler
good.
alert.
So also another technique that Chaplin really enjoyed using and that you would not see in talkies. Like this is not something that is done in talkies, but is done in
Yeah.
silent films all the time. Is the undercranking,
Mm.
which is, because you have to you actually have to crank the
Yeah.
the
Mhm.
camera. But if you would crank it slower, then it would the actions would speed up. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Like that's why in a lot of silent films,
Yeah.
people look like they're moving really fast.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
because
yeah.
it's a very
Right.
intentional thing they're doing. They're just under cranking the camera.
Okay.
And Chaplin uses that like all the time in this movie and in all of his movies
I
really.
wondered
But
how
like
they did that.
so
Makes
many of
sense,
his
yeah.
actions are really fluid looking because he's using under cranking. But
Right.
that's something that kind of went out of being used once talkies came in because you need things to be at sound speed.
Mm-hmm.
And so he would like overdub and do different things to hide the fact that he was under cranking, but it's essential to his
Interesting.
style, and so he wanted to continue using it for this
Yeah.
film, and also
Makes
have a bit of
sense.
respect for that because it's like, it was kind of an outdated technique at that point, but it looks good.
It works.
Yeah.
You can still pull
that's
it off
cool.
in a cool
Mhm.
way.
For example, the climbing of the curtain. Do you remember that bit where
Yeah.
he just like scurries up?
It was great.
It's apparently undercranked and reversed. So like he started up there
Oh.
and then he like went down.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I was wondering, I was like, how did he do that?
Yeah. Yeah,
That makes sense. I would not have
I
noticed
wouldn't
that.
have guessed that myself. Yeah.
That's cool.
He also reversed the footage when he like I don't know if you remember the bit when he's kicking around the globe. He
Mhm.
like sort of gracefully like floats onto the top of his desk.
Hmm.
That's reversed footage.
Mm.
Like he just hopped down, I guess.
Nice.
But you still have to be like really precise with that because
Mhm.
you wouldn't normally just easily be able to get the effect of like floating up and like landing all softly, and he like kicks the globe into the air and then does it. So like
Mm.
Jeez.
he puts in so much effort, and he'll do like a trillion takes. Like he'll spend all this
I'm
money.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
And there was a bit actually that his son was talking about. There was a scene at the beginning of the movie that they were filming that they had to scrap because his son was like cracking up because he thought it was so funny.
Mm.
And he's like, and normally people, he's like, I expected my dad to be like real mad at me and be like, man, like, you know how much money that cost me or whatever. And Chaplin loved it. He was like, I don't know. He just really liked that he could make
Nice.
somebody laugh like that on set. So he
Aw.
wasn't mad at all, which is funny.
That's awesome.
He's willing to bleed some money for the joke and to get it right, which is cool.
Good
So
stuff.
He sounds like a pretty good guy.
I honestly
Like, I want to be friends with him.
right. Like I want to do more research because it's like, I don't know, maybe there is some other kind of thing, everybody's got some shady bits, but like, I don't know, at least in the research that I was doing last night, like he seems pretty awesome. I have a lot of respect for him, I mean, he was a little bit to some extent of a dictator on set. Like he,
Mhm.
you know,
Huh.
like, because he would want to get everything perfect.
Yeah.
And he would be, somewhat strict with actors. Apparently, when Oki, who's playing Napoloni, was like constantly trying to like one up him on set, and like, he definitely felt like Chaplin's presence on set and wanted to like, hold his own.
Yeah.
Chaplin like stopped filming at one point and was like, sort of like, if you want to upstage me, you son of a bitch, you gotta like look directly at the camera. He's like, that will get the effect that you're wanting. You will stand out. I don't know. It was weird, like in a way, like giving him some sort of like tip and direction,
Yeah.
but also like calling out the weird like
Competition. and
competitiveness on
funny.
set. I don't
Interesting.
know. I like that. Like that he also like just goes, "You son of a bitch."
You
Like,
son of a bitch. Also,
uh,
looking into the camera is usually a huge no-no. So
right. But Chaplin like does it all the time.
Right.
I actually have a list of Chaplinisms.
That's so funny. And he's like, I know what you're doing, and I know how you can get there.
Right.
So just do it.
Yeah. I like that perspective.
Yeah.
It's kind of great. Chaplinisms. Obviously undercranking.
Yes.
The quick visible switches of emotion.
Yes.
Where like he's like scared that he can hear the cops are like coming for him, and then he just instantly is like, no, I'm gonna stay and fight. Like just like instantly being able to switch between those things. Hopping on one foot to change direction. Obviously the iconic like waddle thing that he does as the tramp. Glancing over at the audience to share the experience is something he does very subtly, but he does it a lot. Like he'll just like kind of like slowly glance at the camera as he's like, changing what he's looking at, and it works. It is very effective, and that's obviously a technique that's in general kind of a no-no.
Right.
But that he managed to, I mean,
for
he broke that rule just so effortlessly.
Right. And for his style of movie, it was so engaging and endearing. Like, Charlie Chaplin, everyone loves him.
Let's see, what else does he do? Yeah, so he also very intentionally tries to let the actors do the work over, making camera movements achieve that. So his perspective as a director is, facilitating the acting instead of the other way around.
Yeah.
So, like, for example, when Schultz, like, first comes up in the car and there's, like, that whole crowd of cops surrounding the barber who's, being lynched, you can't see the cops that have paint, like, that are covered in paint or whatever, but then, like, they kind of, like, appear from, like, behind in between the crowd, like, very, like, perfectly, like, you can't see them at all, and then they, like, suddenly appear.
Yeah.
And, like, it would be very easy for him to just, like, pan and show that those guys are there, or, a lot of directors would think, like, camera movements, that would be a funny way to achieve that, but Chaplin's all just like, no, we'll do it with acting instead.
Watch me.
Yeah, also the specific way that, like, kind of almost everything he does feels graceful in a way. Like, everything is kind of a dance. Like, he choreographs his movements rather than just, like, directs them for his actors. And also his ability to morph one movement into the other, such as, like, when he's in the concentration step and he's goose stepping, and then he turns that into kicking his shoes off.
Yeah.
He likes to very quickly, like, switch actions,
right,
I guess, in that sense.
But they flow so well. It's very theatrical too.
Yeah. So that's a fun time. Chaplin does some fun things every now and then with the films. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
No.
I think so.
Is that the guy with the Hitler mustache?
I think
Charles Chaplin?
Charlie Pastor?
Yeah.
Something like
I heard of that one.
Get it? That's a good one.
Lol.
Anyway, I think I've gone through pretty much everything except for the reception of the film.
Good job.
So, I guess I'll do that now.
I'm ready to receive your reception talk.
Ooh.
Sidney Lumet said, "I wept at the ending. It was something to me that needed to be said. If it was inartistic, it was inartistic. I don't care. Nothing has to be perfect." Also, I love Sidney Lumet. Just going to say that now. He's a good guy.
I thought it was artistic.
Well, at the time, and I guess I'll get into that too, at the time the reception was like, hey, like, you're very clearly breaking character here, and you're talking like directly at the audience. Like, what are you doing? This is dumb, and this is melodramatic, and
Me.
People didn't like it. It got critics thought that bit was stupid. It was called the worst 5 minutes of the movie.
The speech?
Yeah.
My gosh.
Which is
what?
That's a bad take. That did
Yikes, yeah.
like
the greatest 5 minutes of the
greatest
movie.
5 minutes
Why I
of
watched
film
it.
in the 40s.
Literally. Oh my god.
A decade that contains Citizen Kane. Anyway, it's great, and a lot of people really love that speech.
Yeah.
Now, but I guess not at the time.
He was ahead of his time, and that's that.
But I guess Sidney Lumet saw it as a kid, and he like cried when he first saw it in theaters, and it's like, man, I want to go on a rant about Sidney Lumet, but we should just do that when we get to Sidney Lumet's film on this list, which is 12 Angry Men,
Yes.
Indeed.
because he's really cool.
He gets it.
In 1997, it was added to the Library of Congress's National Film Registry, along with most of the other films that we've covered. It's AFI's number 37 on their 100 Years, 100 Laughs list. It has a 93% on Rotten Tomatoes at the moment, and Jeffrey Vance said that Chaplin's The Great Dictator survives as a masterful integration of comedy, politics, and satire. It stands as Chaplin's most self-consciously political work and the cinema's first important satire. So, obviously respected now.
Right.
But, at the time of the release, he's getting death threats, and parts of the film were banned in Italy until 2002.
I mean, I feel like that just means that he's winning.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
it's
getting
true.
Death threats
That
is like,
kind of.
He
like,
got
oh, man.
5 Academy noms and 0 wins.
Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
Poor
And-
guy though. Like this is his masterpiece, and
Right. Or one of them.
right, and then people don't even
Yeah.
get it until years later.
Yeah.
how it
I mean,
goes.
definitely some people thought it was really good, but it was a polarizing time, I
Right.
guess. The National League of Decency did not recommend this film for children because when she asks him if he believes in God, he hesitates and seems somewhat doubtful.
What?
That's a
Ooh.
quote from the
Gosh.
commentary. But
That's funny.
yeah,
Don't think for yourself, kids.
it's so weird. Yeah, critics hated the monologue, out of character, awkwardly, directly at the audience, worst part of the film. Chaplin said essentially that, hey, they've had their fun for 2 hours. Now I need to speak. That was his perspective on it.
I have
He
something to
defended
say.
it. He reproduced it in his autobiography, actually. He delivered it on the radio several times and
Nice.
at like FDR's third inauguration.
Interesting.
He loves that speech, as he should.
I would too. Yeah,
mhm.
be my pride and joy.
But yeah, he was subpoenaed for his speech in the film
Whoa.
and was labeled as a premature anti-fascist. Continued to be hated by Americans.
Huh.
He was ousted thanks to McCarthyism.
Woot.
Yep.
Jeez.
Also, as I guess we mentioned at the beginning of the film, causing Paulette Goddard to miss out on her chance of playing Scarlett O'Hara in Gone with the Wind.
That's so crazy.
Indeed.
It's okay. She didn't want that role.
Yeah, I mean, that would have been... This is a better film to be in.
Yeah,
let's be honest.
she's fine.
She's also in Modern Times, and she's really great.
I need to watch the rest of these.
Yeah, I would really like to do the Patreon episode, like going through, like, let's watch The Kid, City Lights, Modern Times, talk about The Great Dictator again, talk about The Gold Rush. There's some really, really solid movies in there. Actually, all of them, really. I love them.
Rhys has a crush on Charlie Chaplin.
I think after this film, after doing the research that I've done, I feel comfortable saying that my interchangeable top 3 directors are Charlie Chaplin, Akira Kurosawa, and Jim Jarmusch. So,
Okay,
Here you go.
so you
here
know,
we are.
whichever one somebody chooses, that's the one I'm like, yeah, no, that's the favorite. That's
I
the
love
best
it.
one. Yeah.
The best.
I have some last final facts.
Do it.
He ends up predicting Hitler's betrayal of Russia, but like actually at the time of filming, they'd like just signed a peace agreement, but he was like, and then we'll conquer Russia in the movie, and then Hitler actually tries that, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
Also, I think it's really funny that the swastika is replaced with a double cross.
Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
That's cool.
It's specifically called the double cross, which
Nice.
is funny to me. Among the things that Chaplin reclaims with this film is obviously his mustache and the idea of white paint and a big brush being a comedic gag, not a way to label specific races. So I appreciate that.
Interesting.
Also, Chaplin was going to do a Jewish dance at one point. He had it all choreographed and even scored that bit, but he cut it before release. And now there are only set photos that remain. We do not have that scene. So there is a deleted scene that we will
People
never find.
were already upset with him. Was he just worried about making it worse, or
No, it wasn't like in poor taste as far as I understand it.
Okay.
It was just there was going to be a dancing segment and he was going to have it be Jewish inspired. I think
Right.
the intent was probably to like celebrate the culture and be like, ha, see, it's rad. Jewish
Right.
people are cool. Stop being an
Yee.
anti-Semite. Also, it marks the last time Chaplin ever used his hat and cane in a film. He never again appeared as the tramp.
Oh,
So he did other things, but that was the end.
it's the
So
icon.
you guys are both starting with the end of the tramp, which is interesting.
I will go in reverse.
So I will put the sources that I used in the description because there are a lot of really great resources for this film. But as far as the further watching category goes, definitely recommend the documentary from 2001, The Tramp and the Dictator. The Confessions of a Nazi Spy is, I think, the first anti-Nazi film from 1939.
Sweet.
And then obviously Chaplin's other like full-on masterpieces are Modern Times and City Lights, and everybody should watch those, even if you don't like silent films, because you do like silent films. You just haven't figured that out yet.
You just don't know it yet. You're just dumb.
That's probably very offensive for people. Like, no, I just don't like them. How dare you? But like, come on, give it a shot. It's good times.
Just try it.
It's real good times.
Get used to it.
Yeah.
Come on.
Anyway,
Cool.
so how do we feel about this film? Let me pass it over to you guys. I've done so much talking.
It's good because we're all sleep deprived, so
Yeah.
structured information is good.
Mhm.
I loved it. I feel like I gave it a 4.5
Mm-hmm.
stars.
Yeah.
Sounds right.
I think we probably all did. Maybe.
The
Huh?
speech
I
at
think
the
we all did.
You gave it
Yeah.
a 4.
Did I?
Yeah.
I could have sworn.
You son of a bitch.
Damn it.
son of a bitch, I gave it 4.5.
The second time I watched it, I did bump it up to a 5.
Yeah.
It is worth it. It is
I-
on my top 50. Mm-hmm.
Dude, Aiden watched Citizen Kane.
Oh,
He
nice.
just logged it.
I did.
Friend of the pod.
When I watched it, I did tell him it was really good. So
Nice.
Friend of the
He
pod.
just logged it. 5 stars.
5 stars. I figured he would like it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. That's
I,
cool.
I want to just go back and re-listen to that speech like regularly.
Yeah. Honestly.
Because not having seen any Charlie Chaplin movies before, but having seen like bits and pieces of him,
Mhm.
I just expected more comedy. And then it was funny. And then you get to that speech and I'm just like, what?
Just bawling you eyes
I
out.
just, I needed more of that
Mhm.
in my life. Like,
Mhm.
it was just so powerful. So I was very happy.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Yeah, he's definitely in the past. Like all of his previous movies are much more comedically driven.
Yeah,
Like there's still some social commentary, some political commentary,
right.
but they're definitely more joke packed. And this one is definitely probably his least
Yeah.
joke packed.
Even though there were still like some pretty hardcore
Mm-hmm.
bits in there.
I like the bit where he's talking about Henkel's talking about he's like going to destroy, break through the Italian ranks or whatever, and he's like trying
Yeah.
to rip the pasta in half and he can't do it.
Yeah.
And then he like whips Napoleone in the face with him on accident.
He's
I
so
love those
cute.
bits.
Like, I love him.
Mm-hmm. It's a good lad.
Good stuff.
How about you, Gunter?
Strange man in the corner.
So you're right. I did give it 4 stars.
How dare you?
Hunter.
I don't know. I think I probably just decided that at the moment based on like general personal enjoyment or something at the time, plus the speech. I know, I'm aware. I do plan on watching this again sometime
I'm
though
aware.
to just reassess everything. It'll probably go up for me.
Mm-hmm.
I was tired. It's
That's
good
fair.
though. Definitely enjoyed it. Big recommend, of course. Yeah.
How do you guys like
times.
rank it? Like, is it like your favorite movie we've covered so far? Is it up there?
It's closer to the top for sure
Definitely.
than some.
Yeah, one of the top. I don't know what my favorite one is.
Yeah.
Mm.
We should probably make. I know you have
I
a
did-
ranked list. We could make some too.
That would
Are
be
you
fun, and we could
ranking
stick them
them
up on
all?
the website.
Mm-hmm.
That'd actually be really fun.
Yeah, movieoverloadpod.com, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Oh,
for
yeah, side
me,
plug.
it's second to Grand Illusion,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but the first time I watched it, I think it was like below the general for me, and then the second time I watched it, it like shot up to number 2. So
Honestly, dude, my top movie so far is still Gone with the Wind. Like, Just
Oh,
changed my
yeah.
life.
It's
Like,
it's so
best.
beautiful and heartwarming.
yeah, like I
Yep.
have to
Like,
put that on
that's
every night just
a
to like
beautiful
end my
story.
day.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
understand. Like, I think that is probably like the most accurate way to describe that word. Is
Yeah.
the movie's heartwarming.
It is
You know,
lovely.
it's just nice to see something just like so so innocent. In a
Yeah,
way,
like
you know?
innocent and just encouraging and
This is
positive.
like the short little innocent thing you can just like turn on before bed. You know. and
Yeah, I just
Yeah. You drift off into dreamland thinking about happy things. You know.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's all I needed. I never knew, but I needed
It really is the most beautiful love story ever told.
Gone with the Wind, everybody.
Yucky.
Anyway,
If you haven't listened to that episode, you can.
go to our website.
We do kind of a rant. It kind of be like this same one where I just do lots of talking that I could easily not do.
But it's
No, it's
so
good.
funny and interesting. Interesting.
Interesting.
Blah, 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 blah.
So interesting. But yeah,
Fun
we
stuff.
well let's see. Maybe by this time we got some Patreon.
We definitely have a Patreon
Maybe.
by now.
We
Manifesting that.
Yeah, I mean we've probably had it for weeks. I mean, not that we're like banking them or anything.
We would never do that.
But that's my guess is that
Yeah.
that is a thing that does exist right now at
We-
this very moment.
Also have an Instagram,
Whoa.
Movie Overload Pod, and we also have a Twitter, Movie Overload _. Hashtag fuck Woody Allen.
Hashtag fuck that boy.
Hashtag
man.
Ryan Gosling fucks.
Yeah.
Word.
So much words.
I don't know what I'm doing.
That's
Mom, don't listen to this.
honestly that should be our tagline is so much words.
So much words.
Yeah.
He big monkey.
He
Think-
big monkey.
I think this might be our longest episode.
Is it?
We're at an hour and a half right
Oh,
now.
yeah. That is our
Depending
longest
on,
episode. Congratulations, me.
Yay.
Who would have thought that once I get going about Charlie Chaplin, it would take a while.
That's how it goes.
Anyway,
good.
he's better than Buster Keaton in every way, and everybody needs to understand that he is the king of silent film, but he's also just the king of film.
Yes.
Mhm. And I'm glad that he has so many Criterion editions,
Yeah.
because now I can.
None of which you have, right?
I only have Modern Times. at the
Oh, that's
moment.
right.
I would happily display all of his films on my shelf. Yep.
It will
You should
happen.
get them tattooed on your body. Yeah.
Honestly, I would love to get a little Chaplin.
Wouldn't that be cool?
Tattooed on my body.
You should get the stash tattooed on your lip.
Gosh.
I
I would
wish
just-
you all could have
Oh,
seen
wait.
Reese's face right now.
I would get a lower back tattoo of Charlie Chaplin in costume. It would be a literal tramp stamp.
Ah, that's funny.
Uh,
Creative. Kudos.
I'll do it.
I dig it.
Mm-hmm.
I will like pay for that tattoo if you actually do it.
I would do it.
Okay.
I legitimately would do that.
And we'll put that on the Patreon.
If we hit a certain Patreon goal. I've actually seen podcasts
go.
that do that. Like
Jeez.
one of my favorite podcasts do go on actually did that, where they're like, if we hit a certain Patreon goal, we'll all get tattoos.
Oh my gosh.
And they did. It was great.
That actually sounds kind of fun.
That'd be fun. We should all get a tramp stamp.
All right, deal.
If we hit our Patreon goal of like $100 a month.
Can I do a temporary one?
No.
No.
A little scrub on.
Nope.
No.
No, you need to have that on your
Little
body
scrub
forever.
on one. No.
Never.
Okay.
You're part of the pod
Mhm.
squad.
I might miss.
Well, we need to be able to like
mysteriously-
actually afford to get that. So like we probably need
It's
a
true.
Patreon goal of like
Patreon.
bare minimum 150, but
That's
we
what I
probably
was
need
thinking
more.
too.
You
Right.
know,
Yeah, to
We'll stick
support
that
us.
on there. Don't worry about it.
Don't worry
Mhm.
about it.
Hmm.
Anyway,
I'm terrified that somebody's just going to
Yeah.
just
put up
donate
$150 just for
$150.
1 month and just
Somebody with
A
disposable
friend of the
income
pod is
is
going
like,
to do it. They're
"Hey."
gonna
But you
be
know
like,
what?
hey.
that's fine. I'll do it anyway. I don't care.
Yeah, that's fine.
Good times.
So, yeah.
Modern times.
Huh. Anyway.
Cool.
Anyway,
All right. Do we got more things to say?
Movie overload. That's
I
all
don't think
have to
so. I
say.
think we plugged everything.
We plugged all the thing.
Yeah.
We talked about the boy. We talked about the boy that is evil.
Yes.
Cool. So thanks for listening, guys. And that we say as we say at the end of every episode of the Movie Overload podcast. You can't get away with that. It's not a silent film.
I know. I can't.
I feel the stress.
There's not.
There's so many lines from this movie.
Come on, Rhys, take it away.
I'm not going to do it. You have to
So-
sit here and feel the burn.
I just-
Slow
I said,
burn.
This is
something about a banana.
Come on, no.
fine.
We'll take it.
Something about a wiener schnitzel.
I already said those ones, though. Like, that's so lazy.
Yeah, I know. I'm using my only out.
Are you feeling uncomfortable right now?
I mean, a little.
Good.
I don't know.
Good.
I'm
That's what
sorry.
this is for, then.
Just wait till you see me on the next one. What am I supposed to say for the next movie? Sneak peek, it's Fantasia.
Well, you have quite a while to think about it.
A whole
So,
week.
Yeah,
A whole week.
But, like, there's no interesting lines in it.
Yeah.
Yes, there is.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys
Anyway.
next week to talk about Fantasia,
Hooray.
1940.
Peace out,
Peace out,
bitch.
MFers.
Yeah.